I think before we get on to questions, and there's microphones roaming, isn't there? So put up your hands for questions, please. But the Indonesia Free Trade Agreement's just been signed, so it'll take effect soon. Can you give us a macro perspective on where Australia will benefit from that, and maybe stone fruit after that too? You know, what market access you might derive?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I'm not 100% on all the fine details of the agreement, but I know this has been one that's a long time coming, and essentially there's a few, I guess, concessions here in the tariff space and market access, which will be really important for Australian producers. Indonesia's, you know, a very large country, one with, you know, good growth prospects over time. It also has a very competitive food or potentially competitive food sector, and so in terms of our, I guess, in this vein of value chains and so forth, some of these, you know, arrangements could really benefit Australia over the longer term. How long it takes for some of these impacts to come through, I'm not so sure, but it won't be immediate, I guess.
Certainly a lot of foods go into, Australian food go into ready meals made either here or overseas, don't they? Indonesia is a great maker of ready foods to eat and sold into Europe.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the other issue, though, with getting food out of Indonesia is often they face a number of barriers. But certainly, like, I mean, as an input supplier and close to the Indonesian market, we've already got established trade routes and so forth. It's most probably an easy kind of incremental win there. In terms of
what about country fruits? Are you able to export straight away some stone fruits, some surplus maybe that's not getting into China?
Yeah, we any market that's got 240 million people moving to middle class, we'll be pretty interested in. We have sent some stone fruit there, but in pretty small volumes. But, you know, with this new access, it's pretty exciting. I think for the citrus industry, it looks like there's some real concessions, and they'll be very, very pleased with that. You know, the more markets you can have, the better.
Well, I've got lots of questions, and I could fill some gaps, but we've got one from the floor.
One for Tina. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, that's all.
Tina, as a cherry producer and a cherry juice producer, for any claims that we make with the health benefits of cherry juice, we have to have the scientific backing behind that, the research behind that. With the Melrose claims, do the Chinese people are after that scientific research behind the claims?
I think any marketing research or any awards you'd have got in the domestic market will help a lot for Chinese consumer to accept your product or brand. Because if the product goes through a cross-border business, there's not much certificates you need to have from the government point of level, but you have to go through the bonded warehouse, and all these certificates in the mass market will be a kind of benefit to the Chinese local market.
We've got a question up in the middle there.
Hello. Just one for Jared. Tony York, I'm a grain grower and exporter of red meat as well. So I see myself in the export market as in the global value chain. Do you think, I basically assume that because of that, I don't have any real capacity to build a brand or continue to have provenance going through that value chain. Do you think that is the case, or that it can be changed and that we can build brand identity and provenance even though we're in that value chain?
Yeah, I think to answer your question in a short way, I think yes. I think maybe what will be some of the driving factors about trying to build brand and provenance in that kind of input supplier model is really better and more cost-effective traceability, and that's coming with technology. And so I know that there's, some of these things they talk about, to prevent food fraud and so forth, about testing, but also, technologies like blockchain and the like, which allow, the end consumer, say in that example of noodles, that, they go, okay, well, actually, I know that this is made with Australian wheat, and I like Australian wheat, and because of the, these other attributes that Dion was talking about, is a kind of global brand for Australia. So I think those opportunities are coming, and that's something, particularly as we get increased competition again with international markets, with grains and so forth that we heard about. That this kind of adding attributes to our products will gain in its importance for us to go through.
Tina, could you share with us some other tips of getting your brand into China?
Yeah, I think the first tips is stay who you are, and you need a really beautiful brand story that can associate it with some emotional benefit, and also can best represent your brand spirit. And this is the first tips. And the second tip is you need to quite clear about your core marketing strategy, what kind of resource you have, your production capability, and your lead time for second purchase, blah, blah. And the third tips could be you need to, how you position, like, for example, Daigo Voice, in your journey to China. Are you going to use them? Are you going to engage them? So I think these are 3 tips I share with you.
We've got a question in the middle, haven't we? Yeah, there we go, sorry.
Hi, thank you. My question's to Dion. Thank you, I really enjoyed your talk. I've got a number of questions, but I'll keep it to 2. The first thing is that we've heard especially from the cherry industry, about the packaging. Reed Fruits in Tasmania have to release their packaging just before they sell because a lot of copycats. How do you handle that with your Pacific brand in China?
Yeah, we've been the victim of that ourselves. To be honest, it's not an easy thing to get around. You need to talk to your buyers about when you've actually got the fruit. So my recollection of when we were the victim was it was fruit that was at the end of the Chinese season, and they'd put it into our box, or something that looked like our box. It's not an easy thing to get around, and it's just something you've got to be vigilant about.
So my second question is that with the China policy more being on domestically producing food themselves, have you got plans to do any partnerships to supply in their season your varieties to keep your brand going when you're off the market?
Yeah, it's a great question. Fantastic question. I didn't really touch on the fact that we've got our own IP that we've brought in from Israel that is some really beautiful plums that we're just starting to plant. There is some opportunities over time for something that's a little bit unique to have it partner with other countries, and that might actually be, these fruits are also grown in Spain. So there's opportunities really to, if you get the right fruits, it's not easy because there's a lot of things that are the same. If you get something that's a bit unique and a bit different, absolutely, that'd be something we'd be looking at. In terms of sharing our knowledge or IP or growing systems, there's probably not enough in it for us as a family farm. If we were a bigger corporate, that might be something that we could look at, and certainly there's many big corporates that have set up operations in China, particularly around blueberries and other types of berries.
Sorry, can I ask one more question? I'm also represent the Protected Cropping Association. Have you got any plans to put protected cropping over to bring your crops in earlier?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. We're certainly looking at that. It's not cheap. You'd have to get the right variety at the right timing. But as I talked about, if you get the timing window right, the returns are there. So it's really just a cost-benefit analysis.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Dion? Do you use direct shoppers like Daigo?
No, look, we don't. It's a little bit more difficult with fresh produce. We're loose fresh produce. We don't package our product, so it's a little bit more difficult. It's not to say that it's something we won't look at and think about over time, but at the moment it's got a few logistical challenges.
There has been chances where Daigo shoppers have bought cherries. So there was a story the ABC did just last season, where they were able to sell 800 kilograms of cherries for a South Australian farm for $70 for a 2 kilo box. But they didn't get very much at the end, so those Daigo shoppers did not get very much out of that sale.
You do need to get paid.
Everyone needs to get paid.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So there's some risks around
So,
the produce markets at times.
Tina, what's the opportunity for Daigo to try and get into the fresh food market? Is there still a lot of barriers?
I think so. I agree with there is a big challenge in the logistic parts, because for the fresh fruit you need like a cold chain shipment logistic, and because Daigo is the relationship between Daigo and the consumer is based on trust. So they also play like a quality control role. If they sell the product, they are kind of unsure on the quality, so they just lose credit and no more business for them. So I think it's a challenge, but as long as we can overcome this, and there's a huge opportunity in China market.
Certainly packaged green powder would sell as an easier product year on year than cherries that may have been hit by a hailstone at the wrong time, potentially. Is there another question from the floor?
Question here. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, my question is to Tina. From my understanding, China started to implement the new e-commerce law since the 1st of January.
Yeah.
So what's the impact so far to the Daigo business? Thank you.
Yeah, I've been asked so many questions regarding the e-commerce law, and I think it's a good opportunity to explain this to all of you. It's China e-commerce law is actually not equals to China cross-border e-commerce law, so it's different. China e-commerce law is largely related to the domestic operation of e-business and related to the responsibility of the e-platform operators and individual sellers. Daigo, as long as they send the product as personal items, paying the tax, or the product through the bonded warehouse, it is still legal. So there's not huge impact to Daigo itself, but just one type of Daigo will be illegal. That is like the Daigo travel around and took the luggage, put everything in the luggage and then back to China, and they didn't pay the tax, and that's illegal.
Yes, it's all about tax.
It's all about tax.
We have a question in the middle of the day.
Hello, Maria.
Oh, okay. So just one
so
more question from here.
That's right.
Thank you.
So my follow-up question is, does it mean that all the Daigo business need to go through the bonded zone, or they can send individually, like you mentioned earlier, that all those housewife or overseas students, they send it directly, but definitely they wouldn't send through the bonded zone or bonded warehouse?
Yeah, there are two types of logistic. One is direct parcel from overseas to end consumer in China. And in this form, Daigo will pay the tax on behalf of the end consumer when the parcel is going to be delivered. So this is okay. But another form is somebody is ordered a product from Daigo, and Daigo is just go on a kind of apps or platform and place the order. And this product has been already stored in China bonded warehouse, and which means when the order comes, when the product goes out to the bond house, the end consumer needs to pay the tax. So both ways is fine. And I think the attitude from Chinese government is quite positive. And this could be reflected in the latest announcement that happened on the end of the December, saying like the current CBEC policy will still be extended. And the Chinese government will still support like a small or micro business for cross-border business. So, and another 63 product has been added on the positive list. So all these things we see, the e-commerce law is just for regulate the market. It's not for ban the Daigo model.
Could the Daigo model work for any other country, given, say, Indonesia? We've got a lot of Indonesians who live and study and work here and have migrated here. Could Daigo then be adapted as an Indonesian concept?
I think so, and this is actually the strategy our company is looking for in 2019, and we just wanted to bring the world good premium quality to China, or we will let more engage a lot of countries like Japan, Canada, and Indonesia, and every country.
Sure.
So yeah, I think Chinese people is all around the world. So as long as there's Chinese people, I think there will be a Daigo business.
What do you think?
Oh, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I guess...
I was actually wondering if the Daigo could play a role in importing and exporting inputs.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's one thing, I guess, that comes out of the macro picture is that, you know, having, you know, service providers, you know, contribute to, you know, the production chain makes a huge difference to being able to access markets. And sometimes that's just on the farm, like the technology, the better R&D, logistics and so forth. But others, it's about your connection individual to your buyer. And that buyer may be directly to the consumer. But a lot of our products aren't direct to consumer products. And so it's often about the relationship that our producers have with a foreign processor and so forth. And like when we're talking about large scale. So in that kind of environment, I see less, but there would be examples depending on logistics.
Yeah.
As to whether,
We have a question at the back. Thank you.
Hello. Maria, thank you, Tina. Your contribution was very interesting. A question on the quality control. You said it's all built on trust. So how do you manage that in combination with organic farming? For example, in this Melrose example, when there was such a big increase of demand, how did you manage to do that?
Just regarding the quality control of the Daigo, right? So I think because Daigo is, for most of the Daigo, they are consumers to the product as well. So I can confidently say that all the product Daigo is selling, they should be the first customer to the product. So they will try for a while and to make sure this is premium, good quality product, and then they will recommend it to their consumers. And also for the quality control have the second meaning. I can give you an example. It's like one of my Daigo friends came to me and telling me, there is a consumer asking me, it's a new consumer, ask her, like she just wanted to buy some stage 1 infant formula to her new baby. And the Daigo is just asking a lot of questions rather than just introduce one of the brands she's selling. She's asking why you need a stage 1 infant formula. I think the breastfeeding is quite good. It's not she just wanted to selling the product, but she just wanted to know the back end, the reason behind that, and try to establish the relationship with her. Then she's saying, I'm just worried about if I don't have the breast milk. So Daigo is saying, like, you just try. And then I ask her, why not you just selling one of your brand to her? That will be quick and easy. And she's telling me, if I win the trust of her, I can have the second chance to do business with like a stage 3 formula or the other infant product. So this is kind of the trust relationship and quality control is between the Daigo and the consumer. Yeah.
I can't see exactly. Is there another question? Have I missed something? No? Do you think that Daigo, because of the bad press in Australia about them taking infant milk formula from the mouths of Australian babes, that Daigo has a bit of a brand building exercise to go with Australian media?
They're taking our air freight space too.
Yeah. Well, you're attacked from both sides. No, Tina, do you want to just respond to that? So how are you responding to the bad media press in Australia, which is, where Daigo is, as you say, quite beneficial to Australian businesses, particularly Blackmores or Melrose?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge in Australia is the production capability. That is true. And every time, the Aptamil, like the stage 1 or stage 2 Aptamil is on the shelf, is always purchased by Daigo. I know there's a lot of complaint regarding this, but as I mentioned in my presentation, but think about how they sit in the retail business and what kind of the contribution they have made to Australian economy. I think you can't blame the Daigo to purchase all the product on shelf. Why not challenge yourself for the production capability? And with a lot of people, as long as we can have to increase the production, and we have the huge market ahead of us, why not so that conservative?
So does Daigo then mature to become a direct buyer from the producer rather than a shelf buyer at supermarkets?
Yeah, some of the big Daigo already opened a key account with the brand itself.
Right.
So being a key distributor of the brand. And all the brands I listed here is like they are the giant in their industry. If they are not seeing this opportunity, why they spend millions of dollars to work with Daigo?
Yes, you become more agents rather than consume merchants. Fascinating new name, I think. We've all been fascinated by just the range, the macro picture of inputs into the value chain, the specific shoppers for Chinese buyers, and what those Daigo as a model might be for other markets, say Indonesia, and the direct market access that fruit has into China specifically, but other markets potentially. What an extraordinary presentation. So I'd like you all to thank them very much.